So hello, and you're all very welcome along to another episode of the Gaelic Statsman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Hurley, and this morning I am joined by Seamus Brady from An Cluiche to discuss this weekend's games. Another morning episode, how bad at all, but we will discuss the weekend's games in hurling and football, and there's one provincial camogie final to look at as well. I don't think there's any LGFA, so we'll leave that for this week. Shout out to our sponsors at Capture Legacy. If you want to basically your own like this one here, you could check it out on their website right now. So yeah, Seamus, the provincial championships are over in football. The provincial championships are coming towards the nitty gritty stage in hurling. So we're going ever closer now to knock out kind of GA in the next few weeks.
Yeah, we certainly are. Matthew, thanks for having me on again. Interesting. We've got a morning episode. I think it's definitely the earliest episode we've ever done, 10 a.m. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to diving in. Got plenty of action this weekend. It doesn't feel as kind of, what would you call it? Like every single GA player in the world is playing as last weekend felt. Last weekend there were so many games. Like what was it? We were on my show for an hour and 45 or something after the last weekend. So yeah, not as busy, but definitely a lot to get through.
Definitely. So yeah, no doubt about there is a lot to get through in terms of games and stuff like that. And we will start with the Munster Championship, and we'll start with this game, obviously. Limerick and Cork in the TUS Gaelic grounds on Sunday at 4 p.m. Live on RT2. What a game. It hasn't stored out about it, because Limerick actually haven't beaten Cork competitively since 2023. That game at the Gaelic grounds, where Cork had 77% shot accuracy. They didn't win the game. They actually got knocked out of the championship that day, but Limerick haven't beaten Cork since then. So should be an interesting game, this.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is like that 2023 game. I remember that game for being a game where Cork really showcased that they could mix it with Limerick and push them to the brink like never before. Like, genuinely, I think that game, what was it? They scored 130, wasn't it? 130. They had a 76% shot accuracy, you were saying, and still lost. And I remember that game being such an indicator of just how good Limerick are and just how high the bar is that, you know, Cork perform like that and still lose. Whereas in the past against former champions, the standards weren't quite as high, whereas Limerick had taken it to a whole other dimension. But from that point on, I did also notice that, okay, Cork are closing the gap. Like they're definitely getting closer and closer to Limerick, because you remember the 2021 All-Ireland final, Limerick just swept Cork aside like very, very quickly on that day, and they were so far ahead of Cork. So the jump that Cork had taken in 2 years was really interesting to pay attention to. And I think a lot of people felt like Cork were always a good stylistic matchup for Limerick because of the pace that they have in their forwards. Limerick's defence is based a lot on power. Like you look at the likes of Dan Morrissey, Declan Hannon, Diarmaid Byrnes, they're not exactly the quickest, but they are absolutely man mountains, and they're superb defenders in that right. Whereas Cork weren't hitting them with power and trying to match them for size. Cork were hitting them with pace, the likes of Shane Kingston off the bench, the likes of Alan Connolly at the start. Like they're trying to hit them with something different. And it was always going to be interesting to see how they'd match up in 24. And this fixture last year, I think, personally, is the best game of hurling I've ever seen. Like, the best game of hurling I've ever seen live. I was there in Porky, and when Hoggy's goal hit the net, it's genuinely one of the best the explosions of noise I've ever heard. Like, it was just 0 to 100, and it happened so fast as well. Horgan, being the wise old fox that he is, like, he knew, I'm not going to let this slow down. I'm not going to let the pressure build to me. I'm just going to put this down and whack it as quick as I possibly can. And that was just an amazing. And given then, you know, the atmosphere at the end when the Cork fans came onto the pitch and everything, and it really felt like Cork had cheated death almost. Like, it really felt like Cork were back from the brink, and that momentum would give them a real push on to potentially win the All-Ireland. As we know, they came within a whisker of it and beat Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final to prove that it was not a fluke, to prove that they doubled down on it, they beat them again. Limerick are going to be desperate for momentum. I think this game is going to be so spicy. We'll be seeing the heat between the two teams in the league game, which sold out, by the way, in Porky. And like when it was on TG4, I think there was like 60,000 people or something watching on the player. Like, so there's such appetite for this game. There's such interest in this game. And Limerick are going to be desperate to get them back. And looking at their form in the championship this season, they stuttered for long periods against Tipperary, and Tip potentially could have beat them that day, but then obviously Limerick could have closed it out before the Darren McCarthy free as well, you could argue. It was the Waterford game that I noticed them turn a bit of a corner, which for Cork probably isn't the best thing in the world. Like, Gerard Hegarty really rose to the occasion in that Waterford game with some superb scores. You're seeing players come back into form for Limerick, key players come back into form at key times. Whereas for Limerick, Cork also beating Tipperary, showcasing what they showed in the first half against Clare. Both teams are coming into this probably not at the heights that they were at last year or the year before, but both of them are moving well, and I'm expecting them to explode into life now for this game.
It's actually so. Brian Reardon comes in here. This potentially could be an All-Ireland hurling final. What a magnificent game to look forward to. Sean's commented here, I'd back Limerick for this one. They're still not safe, and they're due a win against Cork after losing twice last year. And Jonathan, the first of a potential trilogy. Like, if you look at the table, actually the permutations, whatever happens in the Tip and Waterford game, if Cork and Limerick draw this, Clare are out of the championship officially.
Okay, so, and what happens if Limerick win?
If Limerick win, then Clare aren't out. They need, well, for it to happen, Waterford have to beat Tip, I think it is.
Okay. But if Limerick...
wait a minute, sorry. Waterford and Cork played each other the last game, so actually...
Obviously, Clare would need Waterford to win that too.
But Clare can only reach 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, Clare are cooked. Clare are gone. I mean, you wouldn't rule it out because what we saw with Cork last year, but Cork were actually in a better position. Cork had, 2 games left to play where they could win both. And results fell for them in a way that season where the big difference was that season was Tip were not at the races at all. So the Tip win after they beat Limerick, it was pretty obvious that Cork were going to beat Tip and Cork were going to do their part. Whereas this season, there's nobody in the Munster Championship, ironically, apart from Clare, who haven't been on it this year.
Even looking, I think the only way that Clare could actually stay in the championship realistically is if Cork win this game against Limerick, Tip beat Waterford, and then Cork beat Waterford in the last game, and then Clare beat Limerick and beat them in the head-to-head.
But this is another example, because a lot of people are going to bash Clare with the bad champions tag and everything like that. It's another example of a team closing a gap to win an All-Ireland and then not backing it up the next year. Like, we've seen it time and time again across the various codes. Once you close the gap, once you break that duck, once you feel that hunger that you had, it's very difficult then to get the same hunger, the same motivation to go and do it again the next season. And I think, like, what Tom Morrissey, what was interesting, because they're all up on YouTube, and God, I love looking back on them. There's Wexford Tip, there's Dublin Kerry, and there's Kilkenny Limerick, all from 2019, where they have like the full Sunday game show. Now, obviously, probably won't last that long, but they all have the full Sunday game show where you can watch like the pundits talk about it, and you can watch the little trailer pieces that they have, and it's really, really good to look back on old, what the pundits were saying before the game, not just what we're looking back in hindsight, knowing what happened. And the reality is, at that time, Limerick, Tom Morrissey did an interview, and he was basically saying, we're not happy with one. We want to be a great team. We want to be like one of the great teams. And it's such an interesting piece to look at now, knowing that Kilkenny beat them that day, but then they proved their hunger the next year, coming back and winning, and then winning again, and doing 4 in a row, 5 and 6 years. So it's really interesting to look back at that. But my point is, like, even a team like that, even a team so good as that Limerick team, didn't win it back to back when they won it finally in 2018.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of valve to look at it. Even Clare struggling after they won the All-Ireland in 2013. They lost to Wexford the next year in the first round of the qualifiers. So it is a common theme when you look at it. But back to Cork and Limerick, the teams were out well it looks for Cork anyway. An interesting kind of omission of this. Seamus Hartney has not made the starting 15. Shane Barrett has. Obviously, Shane Barrett back for suspension after his red card against Clare and Ennis. Like the thing is, normally you would say the way Seamus Hartney is performing at the moment, you think bad call by Pat Ryan. But there's so many options with Cork. That's the thing. Yeah. So with Seamus Hartney on the bench, could that be a good thing in a way for Cork that they have this kind of thing in their arsenal to come off the bench?
Yeah, Amanda has just experience that you can't buy as well. That could come on at a crucial stage of the game. And as you said, like Cork have so many options there for the forwards. I remember seeing that at the start when it was like half forward line, they've got 6 into 3 and everything like that. But they genuinely, like, they've got Diarmuid Healy, they've got Robbie O'Flynn, they've got Decky Dalton, Shane Barrett, Seamus Hannity. I'm probably forgetting someone, but like Dara Fitz as well can more or less spend his time around the half forward line as well. Like, they've got so many options there. It just genuinely is down to what game does Pat Ryan want to play? Does he want to play one that's based on power? Does he want to play one that's based on pace? Does he want to play one that's based on experience? Does he want to play one that's based on youth and kind of fearlessness, if you like? It's all down to what he wants to do, what he wants to bring, and what period of the game that he feels that Hannity will perform best in, because Hannity will feature. Like, because he's on the bench doesn't mean he's not going to come on. He will come on at some point in the game. I'd be stunned if he doesn't. I think if he doesn't, it will be a real indicator that his time in the team is coming to an end, because this is a crucial game for Cork. Like, forget about Clare. Like, this is really important for both of these teams to win this game, to make sure that they are going to be in one of those 3 positions to get out of the Munster Championship. For Cork, they've a win and a draw. For Limerick, a win and a draw. Like, they're not exactly home and hosed. So they need to get over the line in this one. They need to get something out of this game. I right now, this is what I'm feeling. I do agree with Sean O'Malley's comment. I think when you look at the last 2 years, what we've seen from Limerick and Cork, it sells itself. We know it's going to be an absolute banger. We know there's going to be serious fireworks. The league game sold out between the 2 teams, and it was a really, really fiery draw. And we've seen there were flashpoints everywhere, and the rivalry between the teams has really gone to a new level over the last 5 years. The gap that Cork closed on Limerick from when Limerick swept them out the gate in the 2021 All-Ireland final to when Cork closed it significantly in 2023, lost by a point. They scored 130, 76% shot accuracy, still wasn't good enough that year to beat Limerick, but it was an indicator that they'd closed the gap. And then take it to last year where they saved their lives in the Munster Championship with Pat Horgan's penalty and then beat them in the All-Ireland semi-final. Limerick owe Cork a defeat. They owe Cork big time for what Cork did to them last year. They have them at home in the Gaelic grounds. The atmosphere there is going to be off the scale. I really think Limerick are going to put everything they've got into trying to win this game. And I think it reminds me a lot of the Kilkenny Tip dynamic from 2009, 2010. And what did we see in 2011? We did see Kilkenny come back and beat Tip. So I think for round 1, because I do think they will play each other again this year, for round 1, I'm going to shade it to Limerick.
Interesting enough. Like, when you consider it, I was looking at stats and stuff in a piece for the Southern Star this week, and it's interesting to note Limerick have only, across the league and championship this year, they've scored 5 goals, 3 of them by Seamus O'Brien. Mm-hmm. Is that a negative for Limerick, that they aren't scoring as much goals? Like, Cork have scored, I think, 24 goals across the league and championship. I think in the last few games in particular, 6 goals against Clare in the league, 4 goals against Galway, 3 against Tip in the league final. Obviously, 4 against Tip in the championship as well, 2 against Clare even when they struggled. That's a lot of goals to be scoring. Like, Cork are scoring 4 goals in 1 game against Tip. Limerick have only scored 5 goals in all year. Is that a negative for Limerick to take?
Yeah, and Cork got 6 goals in that 1 league game against Clare. Like, it's Cork have... The difference is that Cork have played in a way where it's very clear that they're going for goal. Like, that's part of their game. And when they have their foot on the neck, they're very much telling the likes of Brian Hayes, Alan Connolly, like, they're telling them, when we've the foot on the neck, maximise on what we can get out of the end product here. Make sure that we're as far ahead as we possibly can, so that in hurling, inevitably, when the gap turns, Cork are far enough ahead that they can hold them off. And what we saw in the Munster Championship game last year was another example of that. Seamus Hannity got his goal in the first half. I think Barrett got the second one. And Cork were, I think, 10 points ahead of Limerick. And now Limerick came back, obviously, and got ahead. But again, the final goal from Pat Horgan, where Shane Kingston put the head down and went for it. Like, Cork do have it built into their gameplay to go for the jugular more often than not. And Limerick, more often than not, their scores, a lot of their scores tend to come from deep. A lot of the scores tend to come from Diarmuid Burns, Kyle Hayes, Garrod Hegarty, Keane Lynch, Tom Morrissey, Cathal O'Neill. Like, a lot of scores come from that kind of middle third of the pitch. Aaron Gillan tends to do most of the dirty work up front. But yeah, this year I haven't seen Limerick have that eye of the tiger in terms of going for goals. I haven't seen it as much as we've seen it in other years. Maybe they're saving something big for Cork here.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Seamus has already predicted a Limerick win. I'm gonna go for a draw. Stay on the fence. I'm gonna go for that. So we'll see what happens. Too early, yeah. We'll see what happens this weekend. The Limerick team hasn't been announced according to social media, so we will see it later on in the day, I'm sure. The other Munster game, Tipperary against Waterford in FBD Simple Stadium on Sunday at 2 p.m. live on RT2. Now, the permutations for this, I know this for a fact. If Waterford beat Tip and Limerick and Cork draw, then the top three is already decided before the last game. It's going to be Waterford, Limerick, Cork, not in that order. So it's a crucial game for Tip because this is their last game of the Munster Championship. They won't have a game after this. It's a crucial game for both sides. This is a huge opportunity to take now that Clare, they aren't out just yet. As we rated previously, but they look like they're out, and one of these two sides look to take their place. So this is a crucial game. Yeah,
the other thing as well that nobody seems to be talking about with Clare is a lot of people are saying, "Oh well, like Clare still have a game." And it's like, yeah, away to Limerick. Like, I mean, it's not exactly a slam dunk. Clare are definitely going to win that type of game. So they are very much, as far as I'm concerned, they're gone. They're goosed. But for this game, for Tip gave themselves a lifeline. I think Tip kept themselves alive, and Clare ultimately shot themselves, not in the foot, but like they are out of the championship when they lost that game to Tip at home. Like the goals from John McGrath, from Andrew Ormond, they were the final nail in the coffin as far as I'm concerned. Whereas Tip gave themselves a lifeline. You saw the emotion with Liam Cahill when that close up that Munster GA got. By the way, Munster GA, Leinster GA, just in a quick side note, the content that they're making this year compared to last year has been unbelievable. Like the up close shots and everything, like it's just a level up in terms of the content there. But Liam Cahill's emotion that you saw from that clip when they won, he was so relieved, so happy. Because that's a statement win. You went away to the All-Ireland champions and you beat them. So now you can forget about the whole Liam Cahill syndrome where they peaked early. In the championship, they drew against Limerick and they went away to the All-Ireland champions Clare and they beat them. And if they can beat Waterford here at Semple Stadium, well then, surely they're in the top three. Surely they're already secured. And that is an incredible achievement for Cahill to get out of the most competitive province across any of the codes in Gaelic games. So that really does shut up the narrative of, Liam Cahill syndrome, etc., etc. So absolutely superb if they can get over the line in this. Waterford, though, are going to be some challenge. You've seen the performances under Creeley, the start that they made, beating Clare, that really shook up the championship because with the draws in round one, Waterford with that one win were ahead of three of the teams already. And they definitely showcased it. Even though they lost to Limerick, they showed, why they were to be taken serious. Going away to a Tip team that are firing, though, I do make Tip favourites for this one. I really think the form of the likes of John McGrath, Noel McGrath, Andrew Ormond as well has been absolutely superb. If Darren McCarthy comes back in, he looked sharp as well in the Munster Under-20 final there on Wednesday. He looked pretty sharp. He comes back in, he's raring to go. Tip look good. And I'd probably make them side favourites for us.
And so does Sean here. He said I'd back Tip for this one. They've looked good so far. Barring the Cork game, I think that's what he's saying. Where they lost McCarthy really early on. And yeah, if doing the math there, I would say, I would say the Tip and Waterford, this is a must-win or knockout championship game, because whoever wins this is in the top three guaranteed. So it's a crucial game when you look at it at that standpoint as well. And Tipperary under 20 is doing well. Last 2 Munster championships, they've won there as well. The conveyor belt is coming through Tipperary, and there is positive signs even if they fail to win this weekend. Who do you think has more of an onus to win this game? Who's it more important for, Tipperary or Waterford?
Obviously, it's vital for both, but I would say Tipperary. I think Queally with it in his first year versus Liam Cahill, who had been labelled it, and like as unfair as it will be, if Tip lose this game, he will be targeted again with the whole Liam Cahill syndrome. Oh, Tip looked great in the league, and then they went out in the Munster Championship, and everybody will just conveniently forget how competitive the Munster Championship is and how hard it is to get out of it. So I think this game is more of a must-win for Tip. I think genuinely that if Tip lose this, we could see Liam Cahill go. So I think Tip have more on the line here. I really think when you look at Brendan Cummins winning the Munster Under-20 Championship with Tip on the Wednesday, and if Liam Cahill goes out with the Tipperary seniors this weekend, I think there'd be calls for a regime change there. Because the scars of what happened last year, especially against Cork, they haven't gone away. And if they go out in this game, out of the Munster Championship again, I think there'd be cause for him to go. So, but geez, I think there'd be cause for him to go if they lose this one. But yeah, on that note, I think Tip have more to lose, Tip have more on the line, and that's a major reason why I think Tip will win.
Yeah, I actually think Tip will win as well at home, and hopefully Sean's comments from earlier in the show, I'd actually bring it up there, that he's incorrect in terms of the Tip support. Yeah, this one, apparently Tip are going to be short home fans again for such a big game. When they're going well like this, that's a shame to see, isn't it? Just on a side note.
Yeah, and you kind of can't figure out why, to be honest, because Tip do have the fan base, they do have a passionate love for hurling that is up there with the best in the country, but I can't really understand why you wouldn't travel in droves for a game like this when your lives are literally on the line. Now, obviously, I'm speaking from a point that I don't know the exact stats, and that's just basing it off Sean's comment. Maybe there are Tip fans traveling on droves to the game. I certainly hope there are, because Tip need their fans. They need the extra man. The thing that we saw with Waterford, when Waterford went away to beat Clare, the Waterford fans were absolutely superb that day. Like, they were absolutely superb, and one of them somehow managed to get on the pitch to be a 16th man for Waterford, literally. So the Waterford fans that day were amazing. They helped to drive their team over the line against Clare. So Waterford fans are going to travel for this game. They are going to come in support of their boys. Tip need to match it, because last year Cork took over Semple Stadium in a game where Tip also needed to win, and Cork dominated in the stands and they dominated on the pitch, and the two definitely were not unlinked from each other. So if Tipperary fans don't travel in droves for this game, it does give Waterford a massive boost. So I hope they do, and I hope they get behind the team.
Exactly. So, and Liam, or
because
Liam
if they don't, when will you? What will get you out?
Yeah, exactly. Liam has come in with a comment here: Waterford by 4. Interesting prediction there. We will see what happens this weekend. But just before we get on to Leinster, for Waterford, even if they lose this weekend and are more or less out of the championship, do you still think it's a good season for them to beat Clare, to be competitive as they are in the last 2 years, or do you think it's kind of a missed opportunity?
Well, obviously, it would be a missed opportunity if they don't get out, because they are, as you said, only one win away from achieving it. But okay, so based off the Ticketmaster, I don't know. I hope that the Tip fans absolutely turn up in droves, because they need their team right now, and it's great to see different fan bases turn out in support of their boys. And the one thing that I did see, which was disheartening, was when the Tip footballers won the Munster Championship in 2020, and then when fans were allowed to attend the games after that. You've got a Munster winning team here, and the crowds were very poor for the Tip footballers. So that was disheartening. So I hope it doesn't transpire again here, just like it did last year. I hope the Tip fans come out in droves wear the county colours and help their boys over the line in this game. For Waterford, going back to them, will it be an opportunity missed? Yes, you have to say it will be an opportunity missed, especially if you beat Clare, draw with Limerick. At the start of the year, most people would have pointed to them as being the toughest games, arguably, alongside the Cork one. They've got through 3 of them with a draw, a win, and a defeat. And I think maybe at the start, if Waterford could have been put in this position, maybe they would have taken it. I'm not saying that they definitely would have, but to put them in a game like this against Tip, where it's essentially winner takes all, I think they would have taken that at the start of the championship. So they will be disappointed if they finish this season out at the Munster Championship stage. But as I said, it is Quealy's first year, and the only problem is, while it is Quealy's first year, Waterford have danced this dance before. Like, to win the first game in the Munster round robin, stutter in rounds 2 and 3, and ultimately exit the championship thinking what could have been. We saw it under Davy Fitz. We saw it under Derek McGrath. We saw it under Liam Cahill. Are we about to see it again under Peter Queally? And that's why it would be a little bit more frustrating, because it would have a kind of, the more things change, the more they stay the same effect that Waterford possibly could have got out with the Munster Championship. And already there's going to be questions, what if Austin Gleeson was fully fit? What if we played him from the start and everything like that? Look, I think they're good enough to go away to Tip and win this game. But as I said, I just think the Tip need it more. And I'm going to shade Tip here by 2 points.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Tipperary to win this game as well. So that is the Munster Championship. That's our predictions, Tipperary, and it's a mixed one on the Cork and Limerick one, but we'll see what happens this weekend. In the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, Kilkenny face Dublin in Nolan Park on Sunday at 3 p.m. on GA+. Neil McManus was on the RT podcast over the week, and he was saying that this game being on Sunday at the same time as the Munster Hurling is probably degrading in a way to these two counties, and it's just a shame that these two don't get the limelight as much as the Munster Hurling do. But at the same time, I was thinking this as we're on air here, the Dublin footballers are playing on Saturday against Galway, so probably that's the reason why the game is on Sunday. Yeah. It's a shame, but look, it is what it is. In terms of the game, this game in general, in terms of the context, a point for either of these two will confirm top 3 status, but I think it's more or less confirmed anyway. We'll talk about the Galway game later, but I think if Galway win and Kilkenny win this game, I don't think Wexford could catch Dublin or Galway, because Dublin and Galway play each other the last game. So we could have the top 3 cemented this weekend if we're going to score like that.
Yeah, I think the points that Neil McManus made were really good. And I do agree with what you said there as an equalising point, that, look, the Dubs footballers are playing on the Saturday. So therefore, therefore it makes more sense to get the Dublin fans around for both of the games if they wanted to travel. If they're a die-hard Dub like Bernard Ridden wants to get to both games, he can do that now. The only thing that I've seen Anthony Nash talking about this on Off the Ball, and it's a really interesting proposal. Like, I seen this interview with Anthony Nash on Off the Ball, and he was talking about the possibility of Friday evening games in the championship, playing games on Friday nights, and also then, spacing the games out on Saturday, like having a game at 12 o'clock, having a game at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, like having it spread out across the entire weekend, just like the Premier League would, where you'd have Friday evening games, Saturday games, and Sunday games. I just think opening up a third evening would give them a lot more flexibility with not having big fixtures clashing. What would you think about that?
Maybe so, yeah, but then it goes back to the same old argument that these players are amateur and they probably would be working on Friday mornings. Like, taking into consideration, like, my job at the moment, I'm in an office for 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and I don't leave until 5:30. Your evening's half gone then. Yeah. Unless you can get time off, that's the other issue, but that probably needs to be taken into consideration as well, not just the hurling or the football or whatever.
What Nash was saying was to have it so far in advance that the players would know that they need to get that day off.
But the GA, Seamus, that's not going to be the case.
Yeah, like maybe for the once-off games. I think for games where they're last minute and they're kind of like, okay, randomly we need to play another game, or there's a replay, or we don't have replays anymore, but this game needs to be played and needs to be played now. I think if the GA said at the start of the season next year, maybe 2026, if they said at the start, right, we're going to start playing Friday evening games here this year, and start playing Friday evening games, and they tell the players in January, June, July, there's the possibility of you playing, when they do the draw, round 3 for each team in the Munster Championship is going to be on Friday night. No, and I'm not saying that actually is the case, but let's just investigate. The players have 6 months then to make sure that they have that Friday off. Mm-hmm. So what Nash was saying is worth investigating, because when you have fixtures clashing like this, what it leads to is fans can't watch them all if they go to one of the games. It's worth investigating for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Sean O'Malley saying here, I like a proposal Pat Spillane put forward at the Irish Independent Pod, having the Football County Championship and the Hurling Club Championship being played from the beginning of the year onwards. But then again, you have the county leagues.
I don't like that.
So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's basically
what was Pat saying, to have the football?
Well, by the looks of Sean O'Malley's comment there, having the Football County Championship and the Hurling Club Championship being played from the beginning of the year onwards.
And then what? Then swapping?
And then switching the Hurling County and football codes switched the year after.
So what are you saying, Sean? Are you saying that the Football County and Hurling Club play for the first half of the year, and then the hurling and football play the second half of the year? Because I think that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
I think that would be an absolute disaster. I think there would be savage disagreements over who gets to play when. I think it's interesting to look at this proposal for me. I would look at, we've got the 2 days in the weekend. Would it just be possible to do that Saturday is a hurling day, Sunday is a football day?
Yeah.
So for the hurling super fans, if you go, right, Saturday is a hurling day, we're going to have 12 o'clock, the John McDonough games are on, 2 o'clock, the Leinster hurling games are on, 4 o'clock, the Munster hurling games are on. Or actually, you could go 2 o'clock, John McDonough and Christy Ring and Nicky Rackard and Laurie Marr. 4 o'clock, the Munster Hurling Championship, 6 o'clock, the Leinster Hurling Championship. And then on the Sunday, you can go, right, 1 o'clock, this set of games, 3 o'clock, this set of games, 5 o'clock, this set of games, 7 o'clock, that set of games. Whatever you think. And I think that could be a really, really good way to work it.
Yeah, exactly. It is a debate that we will discuss in future weeks, obviously, but we'll go back to the game now. And Sean O'Malley just coming in with a comment. Is Donald Burke playing this weekend? Just seen Dublin's team and he wasn't named, and he played against Antrim, so maybe he'll spring on as a late selection. What is the issue with Donald Burke, Seamus? I'm intrigued because he was one of Dublin's main players even before this season. He did well for the field in the club championship. And he hasn't been one of Dublin's main scorers, or hasn't played as much for Dublin this year. What's going on?
He does have kind of injury problems. He does pick up little knocks here and there, like we saw for Nafina a couple of years ago. And I think that's a really good point that Liam White says there, that he's been playing the entire year for Nafina, and he's not coming into Dublin fresh off the back of a long break. He's coming into Dublin fresh off the back of a long path, long journey with Nafina. And so too then is Sean Curry, is Colin Curry, AJ Murphy. They're all coming back into this Dublin team off the back of a long year with Nafina. So again, for Donald, we need Donald Burke, but I'm looking through the team here. Eddie Gibbons, John Bellew, Paddy Smith, Conor McHugh, Paddy Doyle, Chris Crummy, Paddy Dunleavy, Conor Burke, Conor Donoghue, Brian Hayes, Keane O'Sullivan, Dara Power, Sean Curry, John Heatherton, Colin Curry. That's a good Dublin team, but we're heading away to Kilkenny, and this is the biggest test that we could face in the Leinster Championship. Last year, we went away to Galway, put in a superb performance, got a superb victory, albeit against a Galway team that definitely were not at 100%. David Burke got his red card, but we still got the job done. This game is as difficult as we could possibly have in the Leinster Championship this year. It's away against a team that have had our number now since we last beat them in 2013. They've always found a way to wriggle out from underneath us. Anytime I felt that we have them, or last year, I really felt we had them. Like in Parnell Park when Brian Hayes got that goal, I really felt we have them. We're going to beat them. And then Owen Cody just somehow manages to put it into the back of the net, and all of a sudden Kilkenny have completely turned the tide of the game, and they went on to get the win. And then in the Leinster final, the game was over before it even began. So in Nolan Park, I do think we have a better chance in Nolan Park than we do in Croke Park. It is a tighter pitch. It is going to be more of a battle. And the last time that we beat Kilkenny, I do believe it was Nolan Park, or the drawn game might have been in Nolan Park. But basically, I know it's in Kilkenny, and I know that there's going to be a lot more Kilkenny fans there, but it's still just a game of hurling on a field. And I do believe that on that tighter pitch, Dublin do have a better chance. And the thing that I've been kind of saying, I do expect Kilkenny to win. I will admit, I do expect Kilkenny to win. The problem that I've been saying with Dublin for the last 2 years is we haven't had a result. The result against Galway last year was brilliant, but we knew that Galway weren't at their best. We knew that Galway were probably going to part company with Henry Shefflin at the end of the year. The thing that I'm looking at is I want Dublin to get a result that makes me sit up and go, wow, that's a big result. Like, wow, I did not see that coming. And we nearly got that last year against Kilkenny. And I think if we could somehow go away to Kilkenny and beat them, that would really make me believe that we could win Leinster this year. And I want to take that step forward because I really think we have the players to do it. Over the last 2 years, we've tended to go fairly similar in the championship, i.e. finish third or lose the Leinster final and then lose to whoever comes out of the Munster Championship in the All-Ireland quarter-final stage, whether it's Cork. It's been Cork a few times, whether it's Tip. We tend to go out at that stage of the competition. I'd love to see us take that next step, break through the glass ceiling, win a quarter-final and get to a semi-final, or win a Leinster title and go through the front door to an All-Ireland semi-final. That's how Wexford broke the glass ceiling in 2019. They beat Kilkenny in the Leinster final in an amazing performance, and that year is a golden year for Wexford now. I want Dublin to have one of those. I really think this team is capable of that.
Yeah, and Brian is just reiterating here, Nolan Park, Dublin didn't beat Kilkenny there, Parnell Park they did. So we'll have to see what happens.
Nolan Park was the first game to draw.
Yeah, probably was. But are you saying Dublin win this?
Heart says yes. Head says no.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go for Kilkenny to win this game as well, but we'll see what happens. The two other Leinster games, obviously, is Galway against Antrim on Saturday, 2:30 p.m. in Pearse Stadium, Salthill and GA+. This is a double header with the football game between Galway and Dublin as well. The other game, Wexford against Offaly in Chadwick's Wexford Park on Saturday at 5 p.m. The permutations are pretty, as I reiterated earlier, if Kilkenny beat Dublin and Galway beat Antrim, then Wexford, whatever happens against Offaly, can't be in the top three. They'll be out of the championship. But if
Dublin beat Kilkenny,
then it's still on because Wexford played Kilkenny in the last game.
Beat Kilkenny, yeah. So if Kilkenny beat Dublin and Galway beat Antrim, then Wexford are.
Yeah, that's by my math.
Wexford are done then. It's very likely that.
But the thing is, we're both in Galway will beat Antrim, so we'll just skid over that.
Yes.
But in terms of this game, Wexford and Offaly, we've been in this situation with Wexford before, where they flatter to deceive and then get dragged into a relegation dogfight. Could you see that kind of scenario happen again?
Well, this game definitely is one. This is why this game is interesting, because I think when we were chatting to Liam White there at the start of the year about Offaly's kind of mentality coming up this year and what are the games that they would kind of look at as ones that they could potentially claim a scalp from. I think when you saw how hard they went at Dublin in Parnell Park, you really got the vibe that especially after beating them in the league, that Offaly looked at that game and thought that's one that we can win, and they came very, very close to winning it. But another team that Offaly definitely would have eyed up and said we can get a result from this game is Wexford, because Wexford have shown a tendency to slip up. Wexford have shown a tendency to drop their level. Antrim have showcased that. Westmeath have showcased that you can beat Wexford, you can catch them. And if a day hits where Lee Chin isn't firing or Rory O'Connor isn't firing, Wexford are in trouble and have been in trouble over the last 2 years without them. So for Offaly, coming up, this is one that they would have earmarked. This is one they would have said, lads, we can get something out of this. And now that Wexford, on some level, know that they're probably done. Like, they know it's very likely that Kilkenny will probably beat Dublin and Galway will probably beat Antrim. It would be interesting to see how much they come into this game, going 100 miles an hour, whereas Offaly know that they need something from this game. They don't want to go into the game against Antrim, where it's all or nothing, basically. They want to go into that Antrim game with some, what would you call it, some leverage.
Confidence.
That they already have a win in the bag. They're not completely screwed if they lose this game. So, yeah, it'd be very, very interesting to see how this one goes. Given that it's at home, I will shade it to Wexford. I do think Wexford could win. I think they'd be in huge trouble if it was in O'Connor Park. If it was in O'Connor Park, I'd be very nervous for them. The fact it's in Wexford Park, I'll shade it to Wexford. But it's a real banana skin for Wexford, this one, for sure. And then just to touch on the Galway Antrim game, yes, I do think Galway will win. Antrim this year just hasn't quite hit the spark. I think you have to be compassionate and say that their pool of players isn't as big as, Kilkenny or Tip or Cork or clubs like that. Like, Antrim do tend to pull most of their players from 6 or 7 different clubs. And when you lose players of the caliber of Neil McManus and then players to injury like James McNaughton, it's difficult to perform to those heights. And Davy hasn't quite got the bounce. And I think he's indicated that the travel up and down from Antrim has been difficult. And they haven't quite got the bounce that previous Davy teams have got. So, yeah, I do think going away to Galway and getting a result will be too much to ask.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm predicting Galway and Wexford to win those games as well. So that means Wexford will be out of the championship according to our predictions there. Look at the Joe McDonagh Cup. There's 3 games this weekend. Laois against Kildare. That's the top 2 in action in O'More Park in Portlaoise, 3 p.m. live on Clubber on Sunday. Then you have Westmeath against Carlow on Saturday at 4 p.m. live on Clubber as well at TG Cusick Park. And then you have Down against Kerry in Ballycran at 2 p.m. on Saturday. So Down, if Westmeath, I'm thinking now, if Kerry beat Down this weekend, Down are actually relegated back to the Christie Ring. That's detrimental to them, especially after winning the Division 2 crown. Laois and Kildare, I think if Laois win this weekend, they'll be in the final no matter what in the Joe McDonagh Cup. Carlow are playing against Westmeath. So, for argument's sake, Carlow win and Kildare win. Yeah, if Carlow and Kildare both win this weekend, then Laois, Kildare and Carlow will all be on 6 points going to the final game. That is popcorn at the ready kind of stuff there. So, an interesting weekend for the Joe McDonagh Cup.
Yeah, very interesting. And Carlow need a bite back. That's the first thing. Carlow losing to Kildare, they need a bite back because that was, albeit an incredible victory for Kildare, but definitely a slip up on Carlow's part. They wouldn't have expected to lose that game given the performances that they've been putting in and given their performances in the first 2 games. They absolutely tore out of the blocks. Laois have been flawless, 3 wins from 3, 67 points plus on the score difference. Kildare up there on 4 points as well. Yeah, if Down lose to Kerry, they're out and they're down to the Christie Ring, which would be a big blow to them because we spoke about the yo-yo effect that teams can experience in these competitions where they're almost. What we saw with Laois for many years, you saw for Westmeath with many years that they were almost too good for the John McDonagh, but not quite good enough to stay in the Leinster Championship, and that kind of yo-yo where they kept going up, down, and every year that they'd come back up, you'd notice that there was a few lads missing from the team that was there the time before, and gradually just it begins to unravel. And for Westmeath, what we're seeing is, I think, the culmination of that, where now they're not one of the teams in the mix to get out of the John McDonagh, in my mind anyway. I think Carlow will beat them this weekend because Carlow need the bite back, as I said. I do expect Down to give it one almighty final push against Kerry to try and preserve their status. And for that reason, I think that they actually will get over the line because I know the work that's going on there. And I think they'll do enough to get a win. And then the final game in the John McDonagh, Laois against Kildare. As good as Kildare were, and as much as they deserve the win against Carlow, as I said, Laois have been absolutely flawless. And I don't think Laois will want to take any chances that they could somehow miss out on the John McDonagh final, knowing that if Kildare and Carlow win, they're all knotted up together on 6. I think Laois will want to take care of business, and especially given they've home advantage, I'd tip Laois to take this.
Yeah, I'd probably go with the same predictions as Laois, Carlow, and down to win those games. Look at the lower tier hurling competitions, the final 3 lower tier competitions. They're all the final rounds. So all games at the Christie Ring are on at the same time. Nicky Racker at the same time, and Laurie Marr at the same time as well. So the Christie Ring, first of all, we have all games on Saturday at 1:30. So the following games: Derry against Wicklow, London against Tyrone, and Meath against Donegal. So the permutations, Meath to Donegal doesn't matter. Both sides can't do anything in terms of like Donegal are safe, Meath are safe. End of. Look at the other games. London against Tyrone. Tyrone already relegated. London could get to the final if they win this game, which I'd imagine at home in Rise that they should do. Wicklow Derry is essential Christie Ring semi-final. Wicklow are on 7 points at the moment. Derry are on 6. A draw would be enough for Wicklow to progress. London might not progress. If London win against Tyrone and Derry draw against Wicklow, then Derry actually progress because Derry have the head-to-head over London. So a draw will actually be enough for Wicklow and Derry to make the final against each other. So should be an interesting weekend.
I don't know, certainly will. Like starting off there with the Christie Ring Cup, I'm just going to get the tables up so I know what I'm on about in this sense. Yeah, looking at the fixtures there, starting with the Christie Ring on Saturday, Derry versus Wicklow. Look, Derry, I'm going to grab the Christie Ring table up, as I said. Just I
have it here, Seamus. Wicklow are at 7 points, Derry are at 6, London are at 5.
Okay.
That's all you need to know. So
yeah, but no, it says here Wicklow are top 7.
Yeah, that's why I said Wicklow at 7 points. Yeah.
Derry against Wicklow, top 2. The teams going into this game, they've both performed absolutely admirably. Wicklow in particular have shone brighter than I think a lot of people would have expected at the start of the campaign. Tyrone are goosed, meanwhile, down at the bottom. I don't expect them to get out of the situation that they're in.
Relegated already.
Yeah. I personally think Derry with home advantage will shade this one. Even as good as Wicklow have been performing, I think that Derry are going to shade this one. Just some of the performances they've been putting in have really impressed me, even though Wicklow have done really well. Meath against Donegal, I expect Meath to win this one. They had a couple of dodgy performances, especially the London one springs to mind, but I do expect them to win that. And then London at home to Tyrone. Nothing but a London win will happen in this game. London's performances, especially the win away against Meath, really, really stood out. And look, they're in a position now where they're on 5 points. And if Wicklow do lose to Derry, well, then London are right there level with them. So a lot on the line.
And it will go down to points difference there. And at the moment, Wicklow are plus 16, London are plus 15. So I think London will make it.
London could leapfrog them, yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically it. So Seamus predicted Derry and London Christie Ring final. I'm doing the same as well. I think Derry will beat Wicklow in the end. London will beat Tyrone, and that should be all she wrote. Looking at the Nicky Racker Cup, the games this weekend are all on Saturday at 2 p.m. So we've Louth against Roscommon, Sligo against Armagh, and Fermanagh against Mayo. So the situation here, Fermanagh are already relegated. After they lost to Louth earlier in the campaign, they can't catch Louth. Louth are at 2 points. Mayo are already in the final and already in first place. 8 points, 4 wins out of 4. Good night, God bless. Look at second place. Roscommon are at 5 points. Sligo are at 5 points. And Armagh 4 points. So that is the situation there. Roscommon play against Louth. You would expect Roscommon to win that. Sligo and Armagh are playing each other. So there's a chance if Armagh pull off the unthinkable and beat Roscommon, they have nothing to play for now. The pressure's off them. If they beat Roscommon at home, then the winner of Sligo and Armagh will actually be in the Nicky Racker final against Mayo. So, and if it's a draw, Sligo makes it. So it's a quite interesting weekend in the Nicky Racker. Those 2 games in particular, I think Mayo Fermanagh doesn't have any relevance, but the other 2 interesting games.
Yeah, for sure. And like, the main one that I'm looking at is the Sligo Armagh game, because Armagh showed at the start of the campaign they picked up a nice win there away against Roscommon and really, really laid down a marker for the campaign that they had ahead. And you're looking at it there, Mayo have absolutely been flawless. 4 wins out of 4, 50-point score difference. They've looked a tier above the teams that they're playing against. Whereas you're looking at Roscommon there in second. Sligo and Armagh could both jump them, which is really, really interesting. I would expect Roscommon to get the business done against Louth, given that their ass is on the line. But Louth have a lot to fight for there at the foot of the table. They're looking over their shoulder if Fermanagh are somehow able to overcome the hurdle in front of them. I do believe Roscommon will take care of business. Sligo beat Armagh. So what's the situation? So if Sligo beat Armagh, they need to absolutely wallop Armagh, basically.
If Sligo beat Armagh, then they have to hope Roscommon lose to Louth.
And a draw or a draw.
Or a draw. Like, look at the points difference just briefly here. Sligo are on +7 and Roscommon are on +13. So it's still very, very tight.
Yeah, and level on 5 each. So if Roscommon slip up even to a draw against Louth, which could very easily happen, and if Sligo get the win, then Sligo actually do leapfrog them. So I wouldn't rule it out, but right now, if I had to put money on who I think will join Mayo in the final, I'm going to say Roscommon.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Roscommon to join Mayo in the final as well. It should be a very interesting weekend. No doubt about it. Look at the Lorry Bar fixtures. They're all at Saturday at 2 p.m. as well. But the main fixture that I want to have a look at, obviously, is Monaghan against Longford, because the two other games don't matter in relevance. Cavan have confirmed their place in the Lorry Bar final, and then obviously there's no relegation. That is the lowest tier in hurling. Monaghan are on 6 points. Longford are on 5 points. So that is a crucial game. And I'm looking here. I think Monaghan are at home. Yeah, Monaghan are at home to Longford. So Monaghan only need a draw to get to the Lorry Bar final. But obviously, a draw, playing for a draw in hurling is very, very dangerous. Longford have to beat Monaghan to have any chance of getting into the Lorry Bar final against Cavan. That is the game of the weekend. Who are you calling?
Yeah, that's just like Warwickshire, Lancashire is a dead rubber. Cavan Leitrim is also dead rubber. Cavan are already there. They've been absolutely superb in this competition so far. They've proven from the get-go why we had such faith in them to predict them at the start as the champions of this competition. Monaghan and Longford, on the other hand, have also really, really performed well, and it's kind of fitting that they're both going into this final game against each other. Like, you look at Cavan, 4 wins out of 4, 64 points plus score difference. Monaghan and Longford have both performed really, really well. Monaghan at home to Longford in Inniskeen. They have a 20-point score difference versus Longford's 6. Monaghan have tended to be a little bit further ahead of the teams that they've beaten, whereas Longford have tended to win very, very tight games. And that tells me that Monaghan's level is a little bit ahead of Longford's, and given that they're at home, as you said, playing for a draw in hurling is Russian roulette. I don't think they're going to play for a draw at all. I think they're just going to play the game on its own merits and go, lads, forget about the table. We just need to win this game. And I do think Monaghan will probably shade it. But for Longford, what an achievement it would be if they could go away to Monaghan on the final. They beat them and leapfrog them into the Lorry Mar final. But I think whoever wins this, regardless of whoever wins this, I think they're massive underdogs going into that final against Cavan, because Cavan have been superb.
Actually, just say plot was actually second place in the Lorry Bar actually plays New York in the semi-final. So they don't actually reach the final. So,
but I still think they will, though.
Yeah. So, yeah, it should be very interesting. But we will move on to the football. That is the hurling all wrapped up. We'll move on quickly. So, the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship group stages do start this weekend, and start in Salt Hill. We will Galway against Dublin on Saturday at 5 p.m. on GA+. A lot of Dubs nervous about this game, Seamus, and I would say pretty understandable given their performance. One against Meath and 2 Galway's All-Ireland credentials.
It's a difficult game, for sure. I wouldn't be the same doom and gloom that a lot of Dublin fans have, though. Like, we're not a bad team overnight. Like, we had one bad game against Meath. If you look at the league campaign, we were solid in Division 1. There was never really a threat of us going down. We had some brilliant performances. We beat Kerry away in Tralee for the first time since 1982. And we were missing a lot of players against Meath. We were missing a lot of big players. Look, are we underdogs in this game? Yes. But I seen as well, like, Aaron put in his title, like, Galway to batter Dublin. And I'm like, I don't think we're going to get annihilated. Like, we're not all of a sudden a shy team. As Brian said there's bags of All-Ireland medals in that team. And yes, Galway beat us last year in the All-Ireland quarter-final. But remember, when Galway beat us in the All-Ireland quarter-final last year, that was a shock. A lot of people were absolutely shocked that Galway beat us in the All-Ireland quarter-final. Since then, Brian Fenton has gone. James McCarthy has gone. Mick Fitzsimons has gone. We are definitely weaker than we were this time last year. But I don't think we're going to get battered. That's not going to happen. I do probably make Galway favourites, but I don't think we're washed. I don't think we're all of a sudden useless. I think Meath are a very good team. I think that in some ways doing some sort of a disservice to Meath to be like, oh, Dublin lost to Meath, therefore Dublin must be shite. And it's not that Meath have just got better. Like as Brian said there, we have a good record in Salt Hill. We're going away against Galway. Our backs are against the wall. No question about it. Our backs are against the wall, but I expect us to come out swinging. I think Desi is going to be reiterating that to the lads that everybody thinks we're washed now because we lost one game, because we lost the Leinster Championship. Everybody thinks we're washed. We lost to a very, very solid Division 2 team who very, very nearly got promoted. I really believe we're capable of getting something out of this game. A lot of people are going to say you're delusional. I think we're capable of getting something out of this game. I don't think Galway are going to mess up. I think Galway will win, but I don't think it's going to be a hammer. I think Galway win by 2 points.
It's going to be very interesting. Yeah, I think Galway will win the game as well.
People are getting carried away a bit. People are just kind of having the end of Dublin party type.
Yeah. But we'll have to see this weekend. It'll be very interesting to see what Dublin team turns up, because remember Derry went to Salt Hill last year and they kind of fell apart. You don't expect that to happen to Dublin, do you?
No. We didn't. No, not at all. We didn't have any holiday where something obviously happened. We didn't have very uncertain times about the management and who's going to be managing the team and everything like that. Yeah, like Liam says it there, like Dublin are going to go into this game on its own merits, and I've thought that Dublin will lose different things. No, I really do believe that we can cause Galway problems. I do make Galway favourites, but to say that we're cooked is a massive overstatement on a team that has bags of All Irelands the way that our team still does.
Yeah, it's a good interesting game.
Wait, just for evidence, right? Just for evidence, let's play this game. So I'm going to read out now the starting 15 for Dublin. So the starting 15: Stephen Cluxton, greatest goalkeeper of all time. David Byrne, bags of All Irelands.
This is key, though. This is key. No Sean Butler.
Yeah, it's a big player missing for sure, and he was missing against Meath as well. So Stephen Cluxton, David Byrne, Theo Clancy, Conor Tyrrell, then Keane Murphy, John Small, Brian Howard, Pat O'Coffey, Byrne, Tom Lahiff, Niall Scully, Lorcan O'Dell, Kieran Kilkenny, Paddy Small, Conor O'Callaghan, Colin Pascal.
Yeah.
And then on the bench, we've got Evan Comerford, Luke Branagh, Cormac Costello, Nathan Doran, Alex Gavin, Davy Keogh, Sean McMahon, Greg McEnany, Killian McGuinness, Brian O'Leary, Dan O'Leary. The bench definitely is not as strong as it's been in previous years, but we still have the likes of Costello to come in. We still have the likes of Paddy Small, Conor O'Callaghan, Colin Pascal, all superb footballers in our forward line. To say that it's going to be an easy game for Galway is a massive overstatement, but I do make them favourites, and I do think they'll shade it. But it will be tight.
I'm going to go for Galway to win this game as well. It should be very tight, obviously, and Dublin shouldn't capitulate like Derry did last year. How players on starting 15 and bench have All-Ireland winners. Yeah, exactly. It should be an interesting game in that kind of standpoint. Look at the other game on GA Plus in Group 2, switching over, Kerry against Roscommon in Killarney in Fitzgerald Stadium. And interesting enough, Ireland's Eurovision entry, Emmy actually learned GA down in Kerry with Tomás O'Shea, not the great Tomás O'Shea, who actually was on the Kerry panel in 2019 when they reached the All-Ireland final. So good omen there, but at the same time, Emmy didn't do well, didn't progress in the Eurovision final. But unlike Emmy, I think Kerry will be successful this weekend, and more so, Seamus, this might be an unpopular opinion, I think this could be 10 points by halftime. I think Roscommon are a team that is devoid of confidence, they're devoid of ideas. I think Kerry could give them an almighty hammering this game. I don't know what you think.
I think this one is one that I expect Kerry to win comfortably. I think if you look at Roscommon, what we've seen with Roscommon is they started off the year superbly. I remember seeing the down game thinking, God, Roscommon are really embracing these new rules. They're really looking the business, and they've gone downhill since then. And they were completely outclassed, I thought, in the Division 2 final by Monaghan. And I expect something similar in this game, especially with Kerry's forward line. However, what Roscommon should do is Roscommon should sit down and watch the Cork game and basically do what Cork did. Because if they can beat Cork, Roscommon, and Cork can put it up to Kerry like that, Roscommon can too. Learn from what Cork did well, but I don't think they will. And I think Kerry take this by about 7 or 8 points.
Yeah, I think it could be more, to be honest with you. Kerry could run asunder in this game. And David Clifford, the man's on form at the moment. In Group 1, Mayo face Cavan in Bacale Park in Castlebar this weekend. This is on Sunday at 2:30. This is a crucial game because more or less with Tyrone and Donegal in the same group, this is more or less knockout. Like, Cavan could cause Mayo a big shot, but then again, Mayo performed well in the Connacht final. You'd be hoping for their sake that they take that momentum into this game.
No, Mayo will win this. I'd be very confident in saying that, but I'd also be very confident in saying that they won't do it straightforward. They'll find a way to give their fans a heart attack, but they will get over the line. And their form in the Connacht Championship has been good. They probably, I think a lot of people are saying they should have won that final against Galway. I'm not sure should is the right term to use, but they definitely could have. I think the block down by Dylan McHugh was the turning point where Galway turned it. But yeah, I think that last scenario where they have to throw it out to Rowan to take the 2-pointer on right at the death, I think was the moment where it was emphasised again, their lack of the 2-point shooters. But I really, really do believe that they get over the line in this one. Cavan did look like they were taking steps forward in Division 2 this year, but to go away to Mayo and beat them, as Sean said, Paddy Lynch, I don't know if he's playing, but if he is, he's definitely not 100% fitness. So, yeah, Mayo take this for me.
Yeah, I think Mayo win this game as well. Cavan to put up an almighty test, in my opinion, because Mayo aren't that great, in my opinion. This game is between two Division 3 sides of the All-Ireland. That's the stage we're in at the moment. But there you go. On Sunday at 2 p.m. between Clare down in Zimmerboy Park in Ennis. Interesting enough game, this. Clare, you would have to feel, last 2 years, 0 points on the board in 6 games. Surely to God, this is the big opportunity to take 2 points or even a point on the board. With the greatest respect to Down, I actually do still think Down will win it. I think Down are a better team than Clare. What could be the leveller is Ennis being Clare's home ground.
Yeah, no, this is the best chance that Clare have had at claiming points in the group stage, because I've always felt for them, they've always ended up in groups that are very, very difficult. Like, I remember one year they ended up, I remember they finished it out with a defeat to Donegal, but they were playing against Dublin as well one of the years. Like, they always ended up in a group that was very, very difficult. And it was always off the back of good performances in the Munster Championship. I always felt for them in that regard. They've got into this Munster final. They got into the Munster final through not a very difficult side of the draw. So I think the fact that they're somehow in the All-Ireland series, whereas you've got teams like Kildare and Offaly who would definitely fancy a crack at Clare, who are not. I think it's a very, very interesting debate. But they're here now, and they have to prove that they're here on merit. They have to prove that they're good enough to mix it. And beating Down in round 1 of the group stage is a fantastic way to do that. To beat the Tailteann Cup champions of last season, to beat a Down team who are definitely moving in the right direction. Even though they got relegated from Division 2, I still think they're moving in the right direction. Down are a real flair team. Can't let them get their tails up, or else they will do a lot of damage on you fast. But for Clare, this is their best chance to win a group stage game, in my opinion, since they introduced the All-Ireland group stage system. I think they have to grab it with both hands, and it will be a monumental achievement if they can get over the line, and I am going to tip them to do it.
I'm going to say Down, just to spoil the mood for Clare fans, but there you go. Look at the Tailteann Cup this weekend, turbocharge, obviously. So Group 1, you have games Tipperary against Kildare at 4 p.m. in Clonmel on Saturday. And on Sunday, you have Leitrim against Sligo in Avent Money Park, Sean McDermott at 1:30 p.m. on Sunday. That's also live on GA+. Look at Group 2 on Saturday. Both games are on Saturday in Group 2 there. So you have Waterford against Offaly in Walsh Park in Waterford at 1:30. And then you have Wicklow against Laois at 6 p.m. in Aughrim. Then on to Group 3, you have Antrim against Limerick in Corgan Park at Belfast at 4:30. This is in Group 3, obviously, on Saturday. And then the other game in Group 3 is London against Westmeath in Ruislip at 2 p.m. on Sunday. It'd be interesting to see Westmeath go to Ruislip, but we'll see how that goes. And then both Group 4 games are on Sunday. So at half 2, you have Carlow against Wexford in Netwatch Cullen Park at half 2 on Sunday. And then on Sunday as well, Longford against Fermanagh in Glen Brothers Pierce Park at 3 p.m. What's your thoughts on these games, Seamus?
Okay, so I'm going to do this a bit of a speed run. Busy man today. But I'll jump through all the thoughts on Cup games. And I'm going to let the ticker bring me through them. So I'm going to do the predictions kind of as it comes back around. But big week. Obviously, we had the first week last week. Most of the favourites got over the line. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes in week 2. Starting with Group 1. I expect Kildare to continue their winning ways away against Tipperary. Sligo will beat Leitrim as well. I think Kildare and Sligo will emerge as the obvious top 2, which they've been from the start. I expect Offaly and Laois to continue that trend. Then in Group 2, I expect Offaly to beat Waterford, and I expect Laois to beat Wicklow. Antrim against Limerick. I think that's a really interesting one. I'm actually going to go for Antrim to shade that one. London and Westmeath. Westmeath will win that. And then finally in Group 4, I expect Wexford to actually pip Carlow, even though Carlow beat Fermanagh in round 1. Whereas Longford and Fermanagh is a really interesting one because Carlow were standing against Fermanagh. But again, you look at Fermanagh and think, what on earth is going on there with the inconsistencies that you dropped your levels that much? I'll tip Fermanagh to beat Longford because I don't think Longford are quite at the races this year, but it's definitely a banana skin for them, and you would question a lot if they lose this game.
Yeah, exactly. I'll actually disagree with you. One, just to make it short and sweet, I think Limerick will beat Antrim, but we will move on to the last 2 games to discuss, and that is Mayo against Louth in the All-Ireland Under-20 football semi-final. This is on TG Car live from Glen Brothers Pierce Park this evening, actually, Friday at 7 p.m. Interesting game. This Mayo were exceptional in the Con Championship. Their scoring from the likes of Dara Burr and from Tom Lloyd and from Niall Hurley has been absolutely exceptional. Louth are on the crest of a wave in football at the moment. It'll be interesting to see who faces Tyrone in the final, but what do you think of this game?
Yeah, this is really interesting. Obviously, I've seen both of these teams now a lot. I've been cutting up the highlights for them and everything like that. And there's a few players, especially Tom Lydon is one that's really, really caught my eye. I think Tyg McDonnell for Louth there, right half back, has been one player that's really caught my eye for Louth too. And certainly players for the future across both. For Louth to claim an under-20 and senior double in Leinster it's proof that like this isn't just a flash in the pan. Like this is something that is more permanent. This is something that Louth are going to be at this level for a while now. And what an achievement it would be for them to get to an All-Ireland under-20 final. I do think whoever wins this game will be underdogs going into that final. When Tyrone have the likes of McCullough and Owen McElhone in their forward line, like you do have to make them favourites in the final, and the way that they swept Kerry aside with the 2 goals, especially Noah Grimes' goal was absolutely unbelievable. You would make Tyrone favourites. On this game, I've been hugely impressed with both Louth and Mayo, but the way that Mayo have been torching teams in the Connacht Championship, like they put a beat down on Sligo. I couldn't believe that game, how easy it was for Mayo when you see the prowess that Sligo have had at under 20 level over the last few years. That really made me sit up and take notice. If it was pushed, I'd probably shade it to Mayo.
Yeah, I'm going to go for Mayo as well. And coincidentally, I actually think Mayo will win the All-Ireland over Tyrone, but we will see in the next few weeks. One more game, and that is Kilkenny against Wexford at the Leinster Camogie final, which is going ahead on Saturday at 4:15 live at Netwatch Cullen Park. Obviously, the scores are short a bit. We will move on to it next week because Congress is next Thursday, so we will discuss it then. But the game in general, Seamus, Kilkenny are on a transitional period amid all the controversy. The Dublin game, they got over the line against a team that knocked them out in the All-Ireland quarter-final. That's obviously not noticed in the controversy of it all. Wexford beat Offaly. You would expect Kilkenny to win this game, despite being in transition, but it'll be crucial for these Kilkenny players just to get a trophy on the board, just to get a bit of confidence going.
Yeah, certainly. And look, they've gotten over the more difficult tests. I say that with the greatest respect to Wexford. Like the fact that Dublin beat Kilkenny last year in the All-Ireland quarter-final really was a massive shot in the arm for Dublin Camogie, but also a huge shock to the Kilkenny system that they lost that game. They got over a Dublin team that has the likes of Ashmar on the side and is a real threat to Kilkenny. I really believe that now. We've taken steps forward here in Dublin on the camogie front. It's unfortunate that game was overshadowed by the skirts and shorts issue. I'd love if the Kilkenny and Wexford just pulled a fast one in this game. If they just didn't say anything and turned up and just wore the shorts and just refused and got down to final abandon and, you know, had everybody kick up about it. I'm not going to lay into the Camogie Association until they've had their Congress. Because they've called the Congress. I don't agree with the way that they handled the Munster final, but I'm like, okay, please, God, let them come to their senses and change the rules so that the players can choose whether they want to wear skirts or shorts on the day of the game. If you can do that, then I'll ease up. But I swear to God, if they double down again on this rule, I think not just me, but you, but every single person will absolutely go mad that this has happened. So yeah, hopefully they make the decision. This could be the last provincial final that we see with the skirts. Which would be a happy change in the sport to see the players finally being listened to. But yeah, I will shade it to Kilkenny. I do think Wexford have the potential to bloody their nose up a little bit. They're real goal getters in their team, but I'll shade it to Kilkenny.
And interesting, the Congress is going to be next Thursday, so hopefully this podcast will be out on Thursday evening and we will react to the decision in Congress. Obviously, just to mention it, there are intermediate and junior finals, just to mention it, we won't be making a prediction, obviously. So Carlow against Laois is at 2 p.m. in the Leinster intermediate camogie final on Saturday. Then on Sunday, there was LGFA finals to look at. So in Ulster, you have the intermediate final between Cavan and Down and the junior final between Antrim and Derry. And in Leinster, you had the intermediate final between Laois and Westmeath and the junior final between Carlow and Louth. So all the best of luck to those counties involved. There's one more comment in here before we end. Brian is saying, I better bring the sun cream to Salt Hill. Got burnt on Saturday watching Ulster final in the back garden. LOL. Weather's set to be fine. Hopefully it will be, and long may it continue, Brian. So yeah, that is the end of the podcast. Thanks to Seamus for coming on. Thanks to Capture Legs for sponsoring today's show. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Ring the bell for any notifications on the next podcast coming up. Enjoy the games of the weekend, and we'll see you in the next show. Until then, take care.